Hello and welcome to the Chinksey Sports Presents, the Premier League show powered by chinkseyMEDIA. And we are back again for episode 39, the penultimate podcast of the season, and a jam-packed one at that, coming straight out of newspaper. Yazemiasa. Forgot to say that on the last step. Check us out on all major digital streaming platforms such as Amazon Podcasts, Apple Music and Spotify. Now without any further ado, we go straight into the first match of the last game week, which was previously postponed in the match between Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. Chelsea vs Tottenham Hotspur ended 2-0 to Chelsea. After dominating the early exchanges of the match, Cobham graduate Trevor Chalobah, recently back from a long-term injury, opened the scoring for Mauricio Pochettino's side, still smarting from their 5-0 destruction at the hands of Arsenal. By heading in a Conor Gallagher free kick, Pochettino, who was coming up against his former club Tottenham, would have been optimistic going into this game, given how his side had performed for the majority of the match against Aston Villa, especially in the second half. Speaking of second halves, the Blues had to wait until then to score their second goal through Nicholas Jackson, who headed in the rebound after Cole Palmer had hit the post from a free kick to kill off the game as a contest. That win was their 7th in their last 10 against Tottenham in all competitions. Following that day was the Friday fixture between Luton Town and Everton, which ended 1 apiece, when Everton, who before this game had 3 consecutive wins, all with clean sheets, took the lead from a Dominic Calvert-Lewin penalty. Many would have thought that this was game, set and match, especially when you consider Luton's drab recent form, which has seen them pick up the solitary win in 15 in all competitions prior to this game. However, target man Elijah Adebayo had other ideas, latching onto a precise long pass from on loan Arsenal midfielder Albert Sambi Lokonga. His chest and volley strike, reminiscent of the great Didier Drogba or even Emmanuel Adebayo, must have had his manager wondering what if Adebayo had been fit for more of the season. Well, Luton held on for the point and lived to fight another day in terms of their quest for Premier League survival. Okay, as we roll on to last weekend's results, starting with the Emirates early kickoff at Arsenal between Arsenal and Bournemouth, ended 3-0 to the home side. The fact that Arsenal, who were scintillating in the first half, almost went into the break level would have been a travesty. Similar to their match against Aston Villa a few weeks back, which they lost, the hosts created a host of chances as they cut through the Bournemouth defence at will. It took a soft-looking penalty award against Mark Travers against Kai Havertz to ease Arsenal's nerves, and Bukayo Saka, cool as a cucumber, stepped up to open the scoring on the stroke of half-time. The game was relatively in the balance right up until the 70th minute, when good improvisation from none other than Declan Rice allowed the informed Arsenal forward Leandro Trossard to score his 16th goal of the campaign. A 97th minute strike from the aforementioned Rice, who capped off a player of the match performance after great trickery from substitute Gabriel Jesus, put the cherry on top of a very delicious looking cake, as the scoreline ended 3-0 to Arsenal against the Cherries, for my first correct score of the weekend. Following that game was the first of several 3 o'clock kickoffs at the GTEC Stadium between Brentford and Fulham, ended 0-0. You could say that this was a fixture between two West London rivals who are effectively on the beach. With Fulham comfortably in mid-table and nothing of note to play for, and Brentford having already secured their survival weeks earlier, both teams played out a goalless draw, having missed chance after chance in a game that will not live long in the memory. An astonishing stat is that Fulham have now won just 3 of their last 16 encounters between these two sides. Another of the 3 o'clock kickoffs was at Turf Moor between Burnley and Newcastle. It ended in a whopping 4-1 victory to the Magpies. Burnley's hopes of surviving the Premier League fire were all but extinguished after an emphatic drubbing at home to a Newcastle United side on fire. Callum Wilson, out for much of the season through injury, continued his scoring return by opening the scoring for the Magpies, who raced into a 4-goal lead after just 55 minutes, with further strikes from Sean Longstaff, Bruno Guimaraes, and Alexander Isak, who had an earlier penalty saved by Ari Muric. A late trademark header from Dara O'Shea proved to be a mere consolation as the game ended 4-1 to Newcastle. And obviously I've got to do my customary, "What paper are you reading from?" they ask. Okay, following that game was the game between Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest. Ended 3-1 and was my second correct score of last weekend. Sheffield United took the lead through Brereton Diaz after a wild lunge from Argentine World Cup winning centre-half Gonzalo Montiel. Just 10 minutes later though, the Forest equaliser came courtesy of an exquisite strike from former Chelsea winger Callum Hudson-Odoi, who has been a revelation for Forest this season. And but for Morgan Gibbs-White, would be a cert for their Player of the Season award due to the high level of his performances. The irony is that Chelsea would perhaps be linked with him now due to his outstanding form. With Luton having drawn on Friday, Forest knew that it was a unique opportunity to take advantage and steer further clear from the relegation zone. And they must have been relieved when Ryan Yates crashed in an unstoppable drive from inside the 6-yard box to make the scores 2-1 to the Galaberdi. Hudson-Odoi, who was a thorn in the Blades' side throughout, with his sharp movement, see what I did there, had earlier hit the post after great wing play. However, this time, after cutting inside, see what I did there, Jayden Bogle and Austin Trusty cut in, see what I did there, and buried the ball beyond West Fotheringham. One thing that is impressive about Hudson-Odoi is his shot accuracy and his knack for finding the corners, something which I think sets him apart from most young wingers in the Premier League. Now 23, I have watched him for a number of years and it's clear to see that he has found his feet at Forest and just needs the trust of his manager, which he has been getting, to be able to truly flourish. Sheffield United now have conceded a whopping 100 goals, still with 2 games left to play. Okay, following that was the game between Manchester City and Wolverhampton Wanderers, which ended in a rampant 5-1 win to the Citizens. Manchester City secured their 6th straight victory in the Premier League with an emphatic victory over a Wolverhampton side who are one of only 3 teams to have beaten Manchester City in the Premier League this season, but on this occasion were simply rolled over by many people's champions-elect. A first-half hat-trick which consisted of 2 penalties from none other than Erling Haaland put the game to bed as the Citizens swept aside an ailing Wolves side still smarting from their FA Cup quarter-final defeat at home to Midlands rivals Coventry with consummate ease. In the 53rd minute, Hwang Hee-Chang, dubbed the Korean guy by Pep Guardiola earlier on in the season, headed home half-time substitute Jean Bellegarde's fizzed-in cross Just a minute later, the mercurial Norwegian bagged his and City's fourth goal of the game to make it 4-1 and dispel any slim hopes of a Wolves fight back. The goal gave him clear daylight at the top of the Premier League goal-scoring charts with 25 goals in total. Substitute Julian Alvarez, who replaced Haaland in the 83rd minute, bagged City's fifth just 3 minutes later with a well-taken finish on his left foot, as City responded to Arsenal's earlier victory over Bournemouth. So City immediately closed the gap on Arsenal to 1 point with the game in hand at that stage. Right, Sunday's fixture between Chelsea and West Ham United ended in a 5-0 drubbing to Chelsea. Informed Chelsea absolutely obliterated West Ham 5-0 in one of the best performances of Mauricio Pochettino's season-long tenure. Cole Palmer, who has arguably been the signing of the season, opened the scoring after slotting the ball into the bottom corner past the despairing Alphonse Areola. 2 further goals from Conor Gallagher and Noni Madueke made it 3-0 at half-time to put the game way beyond West Ham's reach. They were being hammered relentlessly like a nail in a wall. A half-time change from David Moyes to bring on James Ward-Prowse for the struggling Edson Alvarez did little to galvanise his ailing West Ham side, as it took just 3 minutes into the second half for the Blues' Senegalese international striker Nicholas Jackson to add another nail in the Irons' coffin. See what I did there? As he did again in the 80th minute to score Chelsea's 5th and final goal of the game. West Ham's Jarrod Bowen will find himself hard done by as he hit the woodwork no less than 3 times during the match. That being said though, Chelsea were well worth their win. What paper are you reading from? They ask. Brighton Hove Albion against Aston Villa ended 1-0 to the home side. Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton Hove Albion ended a barren run of 6 league games without a win, with a late victory over Champions League chasing Aston Villa by the narrowest of margins. An 87th minute João Pedro strike after he saw his penalty effort saved by Robin Olsen sealed a much-deserved win for Brighton in a game they dominated from start to finish. Simon Adingra was an impressive player during that game. The Ivorian international was a thorn in the Aston Villa side throughout the whole game, but they were thwarted at large by the outstanding Olsen, who was deputizing for the injured Emiliano Martinez. Right, following that game was Sunday's late fixture between Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur. Liverpool, who have lost just once to Spurs, albeit in contentious circumstances, in 14 matches in all competitions, including the Champions League final in 2019, I believe, ended a recent 2-game winless spell which had all but put paid to their title hopes. The Reds took the lead after Mohamed Salah, back in the starting lineup, headed in a Cody Gakpo cross at the far post. Crosses into the box proved to be Spurs' undoing in this game, as Andy Robertson and Cody Gakpo gave the Reds an unassailable 3-0 lead after just 50 minutes. However, up stepped Harvey Elliott, who for me is incredibly underrated and was magnificent in this match and capped off a wonderful performance with a magnanimous strike from 25 yards out straight into the top corner. 2 late goals from Richarlison and Heung-min Son, respectively, proved to be mere consolations as the Reds ran out 4-2 victors against a Spurs side suffering their 4th consecutive Premier League defeat. What paper are you reading from? They ask. Right, Monday's result between Crystal Palace and Manchester United ended 4-0 to Crystal Palace. Another week, another Michael Elise Eberechi Eze masterclass. Another Crystal Palace win. The former got the Eagles off to a flyer after just 17 minutes after twisting and turning past Casemiro, who ended up on his rear before slotting the ball past Andre Onana. Another player banging form is Jean-Philippe Mateta, and there is almost an inevitability, especially under Oliver Glasner, that whenever he takes to the field, he will find the back of the net. He did so quite easily after running past Johnny Evans, who is now clearly out of his depth at the top level, and smashing the ball past Onana to make it 2-0 to Palace at half-time. 2 further goals in the second half from the most unlikeliest of sources and goal scorers, Tyreek Mitchell, and another from Michael Olise, gave Palace a well-deserved 4-0 victory over a meagre Manchester United side devoid of any quality or even work ethic. I personally feel that after this result and performance, there is no way that either Casemiro nor Erik ten Hag will be at Old Trafford next season, as a major overhaul is clearly required at the football club. Ten Hag's struggling Manchester United side now have just 2 wins in 10 going into tomorrow's crunch match against Arsenal. Right. Recap of last weekend's Monday's results. Last week was definitely my best ever week in terms of correct results, as I got 9 out of 11 results correct. Check the community tab. The only incorrect results being Luton Town holding Everton to a 1-1 draw, as opposed to my prediction 2-1 to Everton, and Brighton ending a 6-game winless run by beating Aston Villa 1-0. I also managed to get 2 correct scores, which were Nottingham Forest beating relegated Sheffield United 3-1 and Arsenal beating Bournemouth 3-0. This weekend we have 10 games to predict, so let's see if I can get a clean sweep for the first time this season. I got my broom ready. What paper are you reading from? We start off at Craven Cottage for the midday kickoff in the crunch match between Fulham and Manchester City. Fulham go into this fixture with just 1 win in their last 9 league games and are winless in 7. Bearing in mind the team that they're up against is a Manchester City side who have lost just once in 42 matches in all competitions. A remarkable stat. They are currently 32 games and counting unbeaten, having won their last 6 Premier League games with the bounce, scoring a mammoth 24 goals in the process. More frightening stats are that Fulham have not beaten Manchester City for more than 15 years and have lost their last 15 matches on the bounce to them in all competitions. So how, if at all, any Arsenal fans can realistically expect the relentless juggernaut that is Manchester City to rock up to Craven Cottage and pick up anything other than their customary 3 points is beyond me. My prediction was 3-1 to Manchester City. The game between Everton and Sheffield United. Everton take on a recently relegated Sheffield United side who have lost their last 5 games on a spin and have gone 12 games without a win. Everton, conversely, have recently secured their Premier League survival status, have 4 clean sheets from the last 6 matches, which has formed the basis for their recent run of form, having lost just once in their last 7 league games. I expect the Toffees to dispatch of a despairing Blade side who are now just playing for pride as they prepare for life back in the Championship next season. I went 2-0 to Everton. In the game between West Ham United and Luton Town, with West Ham winless in 6, with only 2 wins from their last 13 in all competitions, the club's hierarchy decided to part ways with David Moyes, whose contract expires in the summer. Despite reaching the Europa League quarterfinals and winning the Europa Conference League last season, they have endured a number of heavy defeats this season, namely a 6-0 home drubbing to Arsenal, a 5-2 and 5-0 defeat to Crystal Palace and Chelsea respectively. They do not come into this game in form at all. However, Their opponents, Luton Town's Premier League future hangs in the balance after a poor run of form which has seen them win just once in their last 16 matches in all competitions. With Luton's inferior goal difference to, or shall I say, with Luton having an inferior goal difference to Nottingham Forest, Rob Edwards knows that his side must pick up at least 4 points to realistically stand any chance of survival. A defeat would mean they are as good as down. I think if Luton get desperate and attack West Ham, they will leave spaces for the likes of Lucas Paquetá, Jared Bowen and Mohamed Kudus to exploit. And that could ultimately prove to be their undoing. West Ham would surely want to give David Moyes and the fans a good sending off for their last home game together. So I'm going for a 2-0 win to West Ham. Right, in a game between Bournemouth and Brentford. See, 10th place Bournemouth, unbeaten in their last 6 home games. And they don't tend to draw many, of recent anyway. They either tend to win or lose games. They come up against a Brentford side who have lost just once in their last 7 Premier League matches. Something's got to give. The Bees, who secured their survival with matches to spare, will be looking to sting the Cherries, who are desperate to finish in the top 10. Bournemouth's front three of Dominic Solanke, Justin Cliver and Antoine Semenyo should have too much quality for Brentford, and I think at least 2 of them, if not all 3, will get on the score sheet. I've gone for a 2-0 home win to Bournemouth. Right, in a game between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Crystal Palace, I bizarrely went for, well, I'll tell you. I think Palace will have a somewhat come down after the emphatic 4-0 win in a victory for the ages against Manchester United on Monday. Eagles fans will remember that for years to come. In saying that, Wolves have had some sketchy recent form and injuries have cost them dearly in recent months, with their only victory in their last 9 coming against struggling Luton Town. The Eagles are flying right about now with 4 wins from 5. So I think this makes for an interesting game between 2 clubs who you could say are on the beach, if you like, in mid-table. And I think they'll both cancel each other out with a 1-1 stalemate. Why I went for that result is beyond me, considering the form that Michael Olise, Eberechi Eze and Jean-Philippe Mateta are in, and the poor form that Wolves are in, but I went for a draw. In the game between Tottenham Hotspur and Burnley, with Tottenham's hopes of a top 4 and Champions League position hanging in the balance after 4 consecutive defeats in the league, Ange Postecoglou knows all too well that anything but a win in each of their remaining 3 Premier League fixtures would all but see Aston Villa finish above them by default. With Villa currently 7 points ahead of them, Spurs must beat a Burnley side at home, who themselves are in a precarious position, knowing that anything but a victory at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium would see Vincent Kompany's side relegated back to the Championship after just 1 season. Spurs have a fantastic record against Burnley though, having won 7 of the last 9 encounters between the two, including 3 on a spin. So I fully expect them to get back to winning ways and continue their winning streak against them. I went for a 2-1 Spurs win. In the game between Newcastle United and Brighton Hove Albion, Newcastle are hunting down 6th place and Europa League qualification against the likes of Manchester United and Chelsea, so a victory over Brighton is mandatory. They could potentially be coming up against a reinvigorated Brighton side though, with the Seagulls having won for the first time in 7 last time out against Villa on Sunday. Their hopes of plying their trade in Europe for a 2nd successive season all but ended a few weeks ago, but they'll perhaps be looking to end the season well and pip Bournemouth to a top 10 finish. My money's on a Newcastle 3-0 window. Through the window. Right, what paper are you reading from? I haven't done that for a while. they ask. Okay, in the game between Nottingham Forest and Chelsea, the 5:30 kickoff, Nottingham Forest go into this game at home to Chelsea as they did against Arsenal at a similar stage of the season last season, knowing that a win would all but guarantee their Premier League survival irrespective of what Luton do. And that would be a welcome boost after their appeal against their 4-point deduction was upheld. They come up against a revitalised and rejuvenated Chelsea side whose one loss in 12 league games, which was against Arsenal, has given them the platform to climb the table, so much so that they now harbour the faintest of faint hopes of pipping Tottenham to 5th place following the latter's abominable recent record, losing 4 games on the bounce. The City ground will be rocking for this one though, and when it gets going, it's a really tough, intimidating place to go. I'm sure Callum Hudson-Odoi will be looking forward to that game against his former club, a club where he came through the youth ranks at. So I actually think this one will be a 1-1 draw. Right, straight into Sunday's games, in which we have the big crunch game between Manchester United and Arsenal. Arsenal go into this game having won 6 of their last 7 Premier League games and 14 of their last 16 Premier League games, with a solitary draw and defeat to Manchester City and Aston Villa respectively. They take on a Manchester United side who have just 1 win in their last 7 Premier League matches, which was at home to relegated bottom club Sheffield United. Everything points to an away win for Arsenal, and given that they are going for the Premier League title, there is no margin for error. An Arsenal win is a must to keep their title hopes going until the last week of the season. The Gunners have a fantastic recent record against United though, having lost just 2 of their last 10 encounters between the sides and winning 3 of the last 4. However, and most crucially, the leveller is that Arsenal traditionally don't travel well to Old Trafford and have astonishingly, listen to this, Arsenal have astonishingly only won 4 times there in the Premier League era. And I'm talking over 30 years, 31, 32 years. Each time keeping a clean sheet. During every time they've won there, they've kept a clean sheet. 3 1-0s and a 2-0. My prediction is that they will keep another clean sheet in their most comprehensive win there yet. I've gone 3-0 to Arsenal. Right. The next game is Monday's game, I believe, between Aston Villa and Liverpool. This match has a lot riding on it and could significantly influence the title race. If results go as predicted, then Spurs would have closed the gap on Villa from 7 to 4 points with a game in hand, knowing that Villa could well lose to Liverpool. Villa are winless in 4 with 3 consecutive defeats and were in fact extremely fortunate not to lose to Chelsea in the only game that they didn't lose in this poor run of form. Liverpool, on the other hand, will want to give Jurgen Klopp the perfect end to the season with 6 points from 6 starting here at Villa Park. A Liverpool win would give Tottenham hope of pipping Villa to the post and snatching a top 4 place from the jaws of despair, especially as the Villains travel to a Crystal Palace side that are banging form on the last day of the season. All things encompassing though, I think that this match will end in an entertaining draw, and Unai Emery's side, who crashed out of the Europa Conference League semi-finals on Thursday, will scrape a top 4 place in the end. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. You see me out, sir? Okay. What paper are you reading from? They asked. Right, that was the penultimate podcast of the season. Next week will be the final podcast of the season. So in the meantime, don't forget to catch up on the previous episodes and the ones that are on the major streaming platforms. And also don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back again and ready and raring to go to read straight out of another newspaper next weekend.
Yeah, zoom me out, sir.
Bow!